Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a Hollywoke hot take. Um, Normally when I talk about Hollywoke, I talk about celebrities doing very woke things and they suck and they're annoying and I make fun of them. Today I want to talk about some celebrities who see the writing on the wall. Whitney Cummings. Whitney Cummings says Hollywood needs to understand those they disagree with, not dismiss and malign them. The star also discussed cancel culture in reference to Roseanne Barr. She, unfortunately, has had a lot of experience with cancel culture. Roseanne Barr, of course, got canceled, and her buddy Chris D'Ella also got canceled. There's a little more of a reason to cancel Chris D'Ella. Allegedly, he was apparently, I don't know how true it is, but he was apparently exchanging messages with an underage girl. I don't know the details of that. That's what I heard. But with Roseanne, I mean, we all know what happened with Roseanne. And granted, what she said about Valerie Jarrett was too much and stupid for her to say. Someone in her fame certainly should not have made a public statement like that. I mean, that was just too much. And she deserved a lot of flack for it. Did she deserve to have her career ruined? I think that's a stretch. There are plenty of other people who have done much, much, much more terrible things. For instance, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. You know, those guys get to go out in public, and I'm sure anybody would trip over themselves to give them a TV show. And yet, they're not ostracized by society for some reason. So, but Whitney Cummings is a stand up comic, or was, and she understands that, you gotta tolerate people to a certain extent. I mean, stand up comedians understand that. Just because you zing somebody and they get a little offended by it, and sometimes people do, that nobody likes to be made fun of. But not everybody is secure that can go to a comedy show and get ripped on by the stand-up comic. But comedians understand this. This happens all the time. They do this kind of things, especially to hecklers. But we also know that college students got too woke, so woke that comedians couldn't even go to campus anymore. I mean, it was ridiculous. I did a few comedy shows at college campuses, and back in, I guess this was the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. It was crazy. Those people were maniacs. And, it was fun. But now it's not fun. Now it's more like, what could we find that we could get upset by? It's almost run by, it's like being run by that religious group from Game of Thrones. It's just like a bunch of prudes who are just looking to be offended. And that's what Twitter's turned into, and half the internet, Reddit. I mean, people just troll Reddit looking for anybody with a different political opinion, and then they just go after you. They do. It's happened to me a bunch of times. Now I'm at the point where I can let that stuff roll, or I'll push back a little bit, and we'll have a back and forth. I have a guy they've got a timer on Reddit where you can go back to a comment and I guess go ha. See, what you said was going to happen in a month didn't happen. He's got a timer on that for Trump, and it already went off, and he went back and said, "See, Trump's not president. Biden's president," and I'm just like, wait for it. But I mean, the politics is tearing people apart, but it never used to. People used to, they'd have differing opinions, they'd kid each other about it, and then that was it. It was over. And Cummings is right. You're creating such a divide in this country. You're going to create a rift, and I think this is the next thing coming. And I encourage this, actually, to depower these media companies. You're going to have to stop watching their TV shows, right? I mean, if they're these massive media companies, you're going to have to, as they say, choke the beast. Choke it of money by not buying their products, by not viewing their stuff anymore. And they'll turn that boat around right quick. Because if they lose their audience, I mean, look at Fox. Fox is bleeding, hemorrhaging viewers now. Their viewers have been portrayed, and they are like, F you, Fox. So, Whitney is spouting truth here. She should be running the frickin' TV network, not on it, with that kind of wisdom. And thankfully, somebody said it. Someone said it. Most of these celebrities don't even have the guts to say something this sort of sensible. They're too busy caught up in the drama or their current whatever. And another celebrity who I'm a great fan of is Kurt Russell. And his lovely wife, Goldie Hawn, of course. Those two, I mean, there aren't a lot of people I would think are, I don't know, balanced in Hollywood. Like, people who seem like real people. The kind of people you'd want to hang out with and meet and generally get them to know them as a human being. But Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn seem to be like two people like that. They seem very genuine. And what Kurt Russell basically said in this article is, celebrities, stay out of politics. Stay out of it. He stayed clear of it for the most part. I don't think he's ever come out with a big to-do about his politics, especially now. Now you don't get, look, 20 years ago, you can come out and, donate some money or help a candidate or whatever. It was, really no big deal. And people just like, oh, yeah, he's this or that. Now it's just like, if you're a Biden supporter, well, you're pretty much just a normal person in Hollywood. And if you're a Trump supporter, you're worse than Satan. I mean, look at James Woods. James Woods, big Trump supporter, and he's openly said, I don't ever expect to work in Hollywood again. And as recently as a few years ago, James was on Family Guy, and Family Guy gets pretty political, and Seth would do stuff. He did a whole episode about Brian become a Rush Limbaugh fan, and, he's done all sorts of political stuff, and that's fine. There's all sorts of fodder for comedy in that, but I think Seth too has, it's kind of gone too far with his politics. I think I think it got the better of him in 2016, where he seemed to have quit. I believe it was him who quit Twitter in a huff, and because Hillary Clinton lost. And now I think some of the people in Hollywood knew Donald Trump and just thought, oh my God, he can't be president. But I think what they forget is he isn't a celebrity like they're a celebrity. They're a celebrity. They don't really, they make entertainment, right? Like Kurt Russell understands where his lane is. He makes entertainment. He's not, just because he plays a, action hero doesn't mean he could, kick a bunch of guys' asses in a street fight or, save the president from New York City or something like that. He understands who he is. He's an actor who plays that stuff. Some of these people, I think, get caught up in their roles, they overestimate their influence and their fame. Yes, they have thousands of people who say, oh, you're just the greatest person in the world. They'll do whatever you say. But that's, in reality, not a lot of people. But it is a responsibility. And there are people out there who are just mentally ill. They're just mentally ill. And they gravitate towards the famous. And you have to be very careful that these people aren't given the wrong message, I think. And getting involved in politics is the surest way to just polarize people and make fans angry at you. Now, you might say, Tony, why are you involved in politics? Well, I'm not very famous, number one. And, politics is the trend, and I'm following that trend to a certain degree for my own reasons. And I write political books, right? So, Wokistan, a novel, is a political satire. Hollywoke, another novel, which comes out very soon, probably this weekend, is also a political satire about the culture war and things. So I'm, up to my eyeballs in this. So I don't have, I'm not an expert, but at least I kind of can talk about these subjects with a nuance where, even someone on the radical left will say, well, this guy's not an ignoramus. Um, the problem with celebrities is, they're very busy people. And a lot of times, like I've always said, they're artists. They get emotional. So if they see some stuff on the news and the news is telling them, oh my God, Donald Trump is Orange Hitler, they get very upset. And, a lot of them get caught up in it. And they're genuinely caught up in it. And then some of them are not genuinely caught up with it. They see the other celebrities doing it and they say, ooh, I got to do that too. But I'll make a bigger show of it because I'll be virtuous and nice and I'll score a bunch of big points. I mean, you look at what Kathy Griffin did and you just think, why would she do something so weird and heinous in my view? I think it was partly that she, doesn't like Donald Trump, but I think a lot of it was like, ooh, I'm going to get a lot of publicity out of this. People are going to think I'm a hero for doing this. And some people did. Some people called her a hero and that, oh, no, she's a victim and, oh, leave her alone. But that didn't last very long. And I don't think she had a firm grasp of the dangerous sort of game she was playing with her fame. She didn't understand where she was in the hierarchy. Yeah, she was pretty famous. She did the New Year's Eve thing, and she's a famous stand-up comic. Was in a couple of movies or whatever, or TV shows. But that doesn't mean you can go toe-to-toe with the President of the United States, even if you don't like him. Harry Shearer's been doing little funny vignettes on Trump. Some of them are funny. Some of them are just like, oh, come on, Harry, you're better than this. But he just does it on his own channel. He's another guy. He's been commenting on politics for years. He's had a podcast, and he's a really smart guy. So he's got a more nuanced approach to it. He's not just saying Orange Man bad. He's saying nuanced things that make sense. But at the end of the day, even he is like got a little TDS, and it blinds him, I think, to what really is the real news, because they want to believe outlets like CNN, New York Times. It also depends upon your age too. I think the people who skew older assume that the New York Times is still a very good news source, and CNN and ABC News and all these big media companies, they're very serious and important news people. So when they freak out and say all these crazy things, they don't understand that's the media dying. That's the mainstream media dying. Art Vader asked me in the comments what I thought of the press conference where Mike Pence walked out abruptly and the whole room erupted into a frenzy. Basically what Tim Pool said, I think, is exactly right. This is the media dying. These are desperate news people trying to stay relevant, trying to make their mark. And if they got to scream crazy questions to Mike Pence in the hopes that he turns back and answers the question or says something weird, oh yeah, they'll do it, because that might get them a TV show or a regular segment on the news channel or whatever. But the fact that they're doing it so openly and so brazenly now, like Jim Acosta on Speed, shows you just how desperate it is. I mean, they're going to sell CNN, and I think if it's not sold to Donald Trump, it'll probably be sold to a guy who says, okay, we gotta turn this boat around. And if Biden's in, the hottest thing will be criticizing Biden. So, they'll probably create another Fox type news station, or, it'd be pretty boring to create a neoliberal channel. I mean, that, all the networks do that kind of stuff already. CNN was like that for years, and that's why they're in trouble. You need to create something that people actually want to watch and that has some sort of credibility. I think CNN's completely lost its credibility. They've exchanged it to score a few fleeting political points because the Democrats pushed them into doing it, and now they're nothing. They're no one cares about them. Which brings me back to why Kurt Russell's advice is so sound. By staying above that fray and staying non-political, people won't turn against you ever, because they'll just say, "Oh, well, I'm sure he has his political views. I don't know what they are, but he's a good actor." I'm sure I've lost fans. I know I have. Talking about politics, the anti-war comic used to get people so mad. It still does every once in a while. Back in the Bush era, though, or no, what's the Bush era? Well, I guess it was the Obama era then. No, we hadn't started yet. So 2010. People who were Bush fans certainly, were furious at me. And when I did a strip about Obama leading NATO and bombing Libya, and that got a lot of people pissed off. I mean, yeah, but that's sort of my shtick. I mean, I piss people off. When you're an actor and you want people to see you in different roles, you don't want them to see you and go, "Oh, that's that guy who's always on CNN complaining about Trump." And yet that's what I see when I hear now, when I see Seth MacFarlane's tweet, I know it's going to be about complaining about Trump, probably, or one of the other many celebrities who complained about Trump. And I think, if Trump loses this, they'll be hell to pay. They'll be hell to pay, because I think the only way to depower these media organizations is to choke the beast, as it were, and stop watching their programming altogether, and only go for things that are, maybe independently produced on like YouTube or not Hulu, but one of the, maybe Amazon Prime even, but or something. I mean, the whole media landscape is just atomizing, and if we're all reduced to a YouTube channel and it's headed in that direction, you can't afford to alienate too much of your audience, especially if you were a comedian that never got political before, or you're an actor or actress that never got political before. Robert De Niro was like Kurt Russell. He never talked about politics. Never. You never heard from him. He never did. He never gave interviews. Now he can't stop giving interviews. And it's sad, because now when I see him, I think about his interviews. And I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about Robert De Niro on some network railing against Trump. I want to remember him in his roles. I want to see him immersed in his roles, because he is a good actor, So I agree with Kurt Russell. Stay out of politics, celebrities. I'm going to stay in it, because that's kind of what I do. I piss people off.